Welcome everybody to Dharma Punk Seattle. Good to see you all. We're gonna see how tonight goes. We might cut a little short. My ability to concentrate right now is a little broken, but I'm really glad to be here with everybody and talk about one of my favorites in this list of the 10 subjects for frequent recollection. It's very, very grim and very poetic. It goes, "The days and nights are relentlessly passing. How well am I spending my time?" Just feels like, I don't know, very like gothic Edgar Allan Poe. Just like the Buddha wrote that though. He wrote that shit. Or, I mean, technically, he didn't write that. It was like some Buddhists 600 years after the Buddha died. But so he probably said it, at least. So anyways, yes, the days and nights are relentlessly passing. How well am I spending my time? This one definitely, I feel, this one is definitely complex because it brings up, for me, a big question, which is, what is the important thing that I should be spending my time on? And for me, it can also bring up almost this sense of restlessness, of like, is everything in order? Is everything in position? Am I doing it all right? Because it is such a kind of sledgehammer of an awakening that without enough sort of wisdom to back it up, I feel like I could easily just like turn my life upside down or like shake up the snow globe for no fucking reason and make some problems. So keeping this in the framework of Buddhist practice, I mentioned a few weeks ago that when we were talking about death, that one of the interesting things that came up through this year to live practice that I did back in 2019 was that early on in the year to live, so much of the exploration that I did was, I was looking at life as if I had a year to live and thinking, okay, like what can I do on the bucket list of things? Like what do I need to get done? Who do I need to be by the time that I die? And by the end, it was more repositioned into how do I be the most present for the things in my life, less about what I could get and what I could achieve. And so, I think this one is very personal to each individual. How well am I spending my time is so dependent on what your personal goals, what your personal values are. And I think that without knowing, sort of who we are, what our values are, it's easy to just kind of make up the like, well, I should, be making this much money and I should be this in this house and, I should be enlightened by tomorrow and like, start to come up with some really unrealistic expectations about where we should be. And so I'll leave that as sort of the precursor to this one because, like I said, I feel like this one can really kind of shake us up as a snow globe And it's meant to do that. It's meant to be, a 10 subject of frequent recollection. It's supposed to be repeated to remind ourselves on a daily basis that our time is finite and that, we shouldn't take for granted, but also with sort of a loving approach that you don't have to fucking flip the table on your life and, beat yourself up if it's not exactly the way you think it should be. So, this is already posed as a question. I will leave it to be the question for the discussion. I don't need to pose a question. There's already a question being asked. So I'll repeat it for everybody. And if you're on YouTube Live, just go ahead and meditate or journal on this topic. The days and nights are relentlessly passing. How well am I spending my time? We'll be back in 8 minutes. All right, let's get ready to meditate. Finding a comfortable way to sit that is upright. Allowing the muscles around the eyes to relax. The shoulders to fall away from the head. The belly to soften. Letting the jaw and tongue hang. Establishing attention toward the breath. And each breath that we're mindful of being a brick that we lay for our practice, the foundation. Just doing our best to stay mindful of the breath. Of course, the thoughts will come, pull you away. Bring this attitude of loving kindness with the breath. And cultivating this by bringing a smile to the inside of your lips. Or recollecting a moment in time that somebody gave you a gift that still brings warmth into your heart. Attention stays on the breath, but brightening that field of awareness. Expanding the attention from the breath to the entire body. If you are focusing in at the belly, moving up the front of your body, the throat and face, the crown of your head, down the spine, shoulders. Through the legs, knees, feet. Allowing that loving kindness to spread through the body as well. Maybe it's perceived as light. Maybe it's with a phrase such as, "May I be at ease." Maybe it's through a memory, generating a feeling of goodwill and letting that spread throughout the body. And beginning to turn your reflection toward the different parts of the body, breaking down into the 4 elements. The hardness of our bones, earth, breath, air. The moistness of our eyes and mouth, water. Heat, from our heart and blood. This recollection brings us to our simplicity, as we tend to find ourselves so complex. Us, the same nature of anything in this room. We receive these elements around us through the sense doors. And with each contact, we decide if we want more of it or if we want less of it. Or if we're ignorant to it, we choose not to acknowledge it whatsoever. Noticing the tendency to propel or repulse in this field of loving kindness. Spacious enough. And just noticing further with noticing the feeling of, is this thought an invitation to crave, to want more? Or is this a thought to hate, to get rid of? Each thought often an invitation to pull you in one of these directions. Not all, but many. turning attention to the mind itself. Plugging in the 3 characteristics for the thoughts. Is this thought pulling away from something that's impermanent? Or unsatisfactory? Is it personal? The mind trying to create a story about who we are, who we should be? If nothing too pertinent is coming up for you, you can even practice by taking something you suffered about today or this week and plugging it into the different characteristics. See what lights up. Impermanence, unsatisfactory, impersonal. Which law is the mind trying to defy? And the practice teaches us that When one of these lights up, the only option is to let go. That there isn't any arguing with the mind, negotiating with the universe that can be done. And by letting go, we don't have to forget the pain. We're letting go of the need to do anything about it. It's painfully simple. And then noticing as you attempt to loosen your grip of just needing to do anything right now. Whether that's easy, we just didn't have the information we needed to resolve it, or if it's still hard. And it's okay either way. This is just good information, insight. Coming back to your kind awareness. Days and nights are relentlessly passing. How well am I spending my time? I think one of the things that was transformative about this practice for me is that it taught me about becoming. That's something that is talked about a lot. It's sort of the synonymous path of craving is this idea of becoming. So You can look at the aversion type as the unbecoming, like we're constantly trying to become something or not become something. And I feel like it's such an important aspect of plugging into this specific one, because it can generate so much becoming. It can generate so much needing to be someone else, somewhere else, in a different space, time, universe. And I've lived a practice like that. I've lived a practice that tried to orient every minute, every second as though, I was trying to do the most valuable possible thing that I could think of in the moment. I've tried that. It's not very mindful, I promise you. It sucks. And, so I really just want to discourage that trap that comes along with this one, where it is so true that we it's pointing to the preciousness of our lives. It's pointing to how finite of a resource we have. And if we mistake it into a becoming practice, that's a practice of suffering. So careful, tread lightly. This is a mindfulness practice, not a becoming practice. So I'll talk more about mindfulness rather than things that we could possibly become. Best top 10 ways to spend your time as a Buddhist or whatever, like buzz thing that I could go for. Mindfulness in itself is a buzzword nowadays. I, as a clinician, encounter mindfulness quite a lot in spaces where mindfulness isn't understood. And often mindfulness is this thing where we go and sort of lobotomize ourselves, and then we feel better for like a brief period of time. And even though I think many of us who have been practicing for a while don't, have done some work at undoing that, sort of understand that meditation comes with thought, and it's about the way we relate to thought. There's still, I think, so many underlying traps that we still put ourselves in. Like, I'm not concentrated enough, I'm thinking so much. I can remember I was on a retreat a while ago, and I was reporting to my teacher how, I had this like really beautiful insight and on the retreat, and then my mind kept replaying it over and over and over again, like waiting for the moment where I could speak to recite it. And then I finally told my teacher about it, and then also noted how I could not put that down. And he was like, "It seems like you think that you're going to stop thinking." And I can remember him saying that and being like, "Well, what do you mean? Like, I'm on meditation retreat." Yeah. Like logically I understood that I wasn't going to stop thinking, but like I like forgot that even that, this like circular, like I'm gonna circle the drain on how I'm going to present my insight the way that I want it to be framed, was like this craving for like this, you know, this simple pleasure that I could get on a meditation retreat. You know, rather than just acknowledging that, you know, suffering over the confusion of why this was continuing to happen. And so really trying to understand mindfulness for what mindfulness is. The Satipatthana Sutta is a very great resource if you are, I think it's one thing to practice mindfulness and sort of absorb it in meditation and absorb it through talks. But actually studying the different lists of mindfulness completely changed my mindfulness practice. I had practiced mindfulness for years, and it really wasn't until I actually started to absorb the information that was laid out in the Satipatthana Sutta that it all started to like click. It's like how I sort of just function in the world. Like I have this like really beautiful camera that looks almost exactly like this one, and I have never read the instruction manual, but like I can fucking work it. Can I work it the best way possible? No. Do I regularly need to call on other people for help to work my camera? Yes. But I don't read the instructions. And I feel like mindfulness can be a little bit like that, where we can like sort of use it crudely and usefully. We can get the project done. But if we actually read the instructions, it's a game changer. I have to admit. And so that is where how well I am spending my time. Because I think the more that I practice mindfulness, the better I am at attuning myself at what in any given moment is the most important thing. And often that ought to be just whatever the fuck is in front of me. Whether it's a person, whether it's my work, whether it's, you know, even my, you know, even Instagram. Like, can I treat that moment like it's the most important fucking moment of my life? Can I interact with my social media in a way that I feel good about? Rather than, you know, just it's the face my professor makes at all of us all the time when we're on Zoom. There's a story that I wanted to share on this topic. I don't know if I fully remember it, to be honest, but I'm gonna shoot for it and hope that I salvage some good piece of it. It's a story about, surprise, surprise, a monk, and he's out practicing underneath a mango tree, and the abbot of the monastery comes out and asks this young monk if he had done his chores. And he's sort of just laying on his back underneath the tree, and he's like, nah, I'm practicing spacious awareness right now. And he was like, spacious awareness of what? And he was like, just kind of gesturing. And so the abbot sort of just nods. And, this monk has like had a history of sort of having a vague-ish relationship with the practice at this point. If you're supposed to be up at 6 a.m. for the morning word. Give me the word, John.
Chant.
Well, what's the actual word?
Puja.
Puja, thank you. If you're supposed to be up at 6 a.m. for the morning puja, he's up at 6-ish, right? Maybe 6:30, right? He's not known for his tactfulness, and so the next day, the monk is still underneath the mango tree, and the abbot comes and he's like, man, like we need some help. You need to go fix the roof to the monastery. And he's sitting there eating a mango, and just like, there'll be time for that later. Just again, sort of just brushing him off. Don't worry, roofs are impermanent. They're impermanent, And so the abbot sort of nods his head and walks away. And so that night in Thailand, there's rains, there's monsoons, and thus the monsoons came that night. And the monk, very irritated, sort of soaking wet from the holes in the roof. All of his stuff is smeared with water, and he's got his like fucking, little notebooks of things that I will someday write. And he goes to the abbot and said, well, why didn't you tell me that, that there was going to be a storm tonight? And the abbot's like, I did. That the days aren't going to calendar themselves. And that being sort of the lesson of this, the days and nights are relentlessly passing, right? Like, we're not training for the moment that the roof breaks. We're training for the moment that the storm hits. And so we're trying to keep the practice secure and insulated, so that way when impermanence does come along, we are protected. So that way when things don't go the way we want to and they're unsatisfactory, we're protected. So when something seems really fishy and personal, we're protected. I can definitely speak to the difference in my practice from the way, as many of you know, I experienced a pretty significant wave of impermanence this week. And it's fascinating to see the way that the practice shows up in those moments, and that when those things brush, when that storm of impermanence hits, it's not that house, the kuti doesn't shake, that, the outside doesn't get swamped, that it's uncomfortable and maybe the lights go out. But ultimately, you can remain inside of the kuti, yourself, not burdened and not wet. So I think that's all that I have for tonight. Does anybody have any questions on this specific recollection? Any questions about the practice?
I appreciate that you highlighted that the point isn't just do more, because that feels like that's the natural, like, Western answer to this question.
Yeah.
Always more.
It does.
Always more.
Always more. Like, how can I be like maxing
Yeah.
my my like every fucking minute, fucking meditate like 20 hours a day. Read every book. That's one of my favorite things that I think about that a comedian said. Speaking of days and nights are relentlessly passing, he was talking about like how slowly he reads books, and he was like saying something like, I'm 45. I probably only got like 5 books left. And I think about that often, where I'm just like, I don't know how much time I got left, but how many books do I have left in me? I better pick the ones I really want to read. And that's why I don't give a fuck anymore. If I like don't like a book, I just huck it, because I'm like, this might be my last book. That it? I have good news, everyone. Thank you. One of my teachers, Seho, is going to be coming up either in late January or February. We're still ironing out the specific date. I've been talking about that there was going to be a retreat coming up. So that is in the works. That is going to happen. We're just narrowing down the exact date right now. The church is on board, so we're like almost there with securing an actual date. But I wanted to give you a heads up that that's coming. We're really excited. Seho has been, I would say, formulating a new theoretical approach to make Buddhism even more digestible to the naked user. And so...
You're not already naked?
Like under my clothes, I guess. That's what YouTube can't see. Actually naked. Like the entire audience is nude.
They were asking me this holiday.
You'll never know.
What a twist.
Technically, no talking cats.
So yeah, keep your eye out for more information on that. I should hopefully have a date down within the next week. But it'll be about the different states of it's the different realms in Buddhism, but sort of through the lens of like different mind states. It's really cool. But besides that, Donna, we have a $5 to $10 suggested donation. If you would like to give cash, you can throw some cash into the bowl. If you would like to donate via Venmo or Cash App, you may do that. I have you can ask me for that information if you need it. Otherwise, all Buddhist teachings are freely offered. Speaking of free offerings, there's many books up here free for the taking. So come check those out, take some literature. I wish, yeah, never mind, I don't wish anything. So let's dedicate some merit. May any goodness that arose from our practice here today be spread above and below, to the seen and the unseen, to those being born and to those who are dying.